You can draw this in Procreate. You can create this haunted house in Procreate, and all you need are the brushes that are already in the app. All you have to do is follow this tutorial all the way till the end, and don't forget to share your work on Instagram once you're finished and tag me in the image, not just in the description, because that way I will be able to find your work and we might see your work in the next You Can Draw This video. And if you don't want to miss the next You Can Draw This video, then do be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification button so you won't miss it. And if you can't get enough of these tutorial videos, then do be sure to check out my Patreon page as well, because you can find a lot more content there. Lots of videos ranging from beginner level to more advanced levels. Let's get started with our haunted house. The canvas is 2500 pixels by 2500 pixels. And I have created a color palette for you, which you can find through the link in the description. You can download it for free, no worries. And that way you can use the exact same colors I'm using in this video. And for your information, I'm using a sRGB color profile with the long code IEC code after that. So if you're using that same color profile, your colors should look the same once you're finished. First thing we'll do is pick this dark color here, the first color in the color palette, and we'll drop it onto our canvas by dragging that circle on top of it. And now let's make a gradient for our background. Let's pick this slightly lighter blue. And for our brush, we will go to the airbrushing brushes and use the soft brush. The opacity of this brush is set to 40%. That means it's a bit transparent. And for our size, let's go to around 18-19%. And let's go over the lower side of our canvas. You know, you can barely see this, so let's just go even lighter. Let's pick this color in the color palette, that third color, and make the lower part of our canvas, let's make that lighter. I'll just make horizontal strokes like this. And here at the bottom, we'll create some mist. So let's make that nice and light. And now let's go to the magic wand and pick Gaussian blur. And make sure to select layer. And now with your finger, you can slide to the right, blurring your layer. I'm going for 17%. Now let's start creating our haunted house. We'll do that on a new layer, so go to the layer menu and click the plus for a new layer. And for the brush, we will go to the calligraphy brushes and use the monoline brush. And for the color, we will pick this bright blue over here. And first thing we'll do is just create a rectangle. You can make it a bit wonky. Hold your pen in place once you've created that rectangle, and then go to Edit Shape to move around these handles until you got a shape that you like. You can see that I didn't exactly make it very tidy, but that's okay. We got an extra line here. I'll go for something like this, and now I'll drop in the color. And if you hold your pen in place, you can adjust the color drop threshold. I'll go a bit to the right. I want to make sure that I don't get any light lines. And now it's perfectly filled. Let's create another shape for our house. I'll make another rectangle here at the top. And again, I'll go to Edit Shape to get some more control, to adjust it to my liking. And I'll fill it again by dropping in the color. Let's also make a roof. I'll go for a triangle there. And again, using Edit Shape to get a perfect looking roof. Something like that. And again, dropping in the color to fill it. Finally, I want to add a chimney. So I'll make a long rectangle here at the top. And again, using edit shape until I got something that I like, and then just drop in the color to fill it. I feel my house is a little bit tall. I want to make it a bit shorter, so we can go to the move tool, go to freeform, and I'll just squish it a little bit at the bottom and move it down slightly. For our next step, we are going to make another layer, so go to the layer menu, click the plus, and for the color, we will go to the next bright blue color here. And I'd like to add an extra element, like an extra little house in front of the house. It's floating right here. Let's make a rectangle first. Use edit shape again. This will add a little bit of interest to our haunted, wonky, wobbly house. And let's also give this a little roof and adjust it a little bit. And fill the shape. And we can even move it around using the move tool. We can move it a bit to the side. And click the arrow to turn off the selection. And now we have a nice base for our haunted house. Next thing I would like to do is add some planks to our house. This is a wooden house. So let's go to that first house layer that we created. And on this layer, we will turn on alpha lock. And this way, we will only be able to paint on top of that house shape. We won't be able to paint outside of that shape. For the brush, we will go to inking. And then we'll use ink bleed. And now we will go to the wrench, then to canvas, and turn on drawing guide. And now go to edit drawing guide. And turn on assisted drawing. And make sure that it's a 2D grid. You can also turn on and off assisted drawing by going to your layers. You can see assisted right here. If you click your layer, you can turn it on and off. Now that it's turned on, we can go to the wrench again and turn off the drawing guide here. So we are not seeing it, but when you look at your layer, it's still active. And this is super handy because we want horizontal lines for our planks. First, let's go to this dark color. It's like black. And the brush, it's at 100% opacity and the size is at 20%. And now let's just go from the top to the bottom over our house and make these lines. You don't have to, well, keep the same distance between them. We want it to look a bit weird and wonky. So don't worry if it's not looking the same everywhere. And you can vary the pressure that you're using on your pen. If you press harder, your line will become thicker. And if you press less hard, it'll become thinner. So let's just cover the entire house with these lines. And it looks a bit weird right now, just house with these lines, but trust me, it'll work out in the end. And let's do the same for that little part here in our house. Let's go to that layer with that little part, little extra house. Click the layer and make sure that you turn on drawing assist. And also that you turn on alpha lock so we won't be drawing outside of that shape. Otherwise those lines would end up in the sky. And again, let's give it some lines for our planks. Over here we have some lines that we don't want because we have that chimney over there. So let's go back to this layer, turn off drawing assist, and grab a brush. We can grab the calligraphy brush, the monoline brush, pick that color of the house, and just go over that area a bit to tidy it up. Next, let's add some windows and doors. We can add those on a layer on top of the other, so just click the plus. And there we have our new layer. For the color, we will pick this dark color that we were just using for those lines. And I want our windows and our door to have very crisp corners. And if we are using the monoline brush, you get a little bit of those rounded corners. So what we'll do is use the selection tool. Just go to the S-shaped ribbon and use rectangle. Now first let's make a rectangle for the door. Let's start about here and create a rectangle here. And you can fill it by dragging in the color onto your selection, and now you have very crisp looking corners. But if you feel like it's looking a bit too tidy, what you can do is turn off the selection by clicking the S-shaped ribbon again and then going to the move tool. And now we can use distort. And now we can use these handles to make our door look a bit more, well, distorted. Because we want our haunted house to look a bit weird. And this way we will keep those nice, crisp, sharp corners. But if we want to use the same technique for the windows, we do need to make sure that we put each element on a separate layer for now. So be sure that once you have your door, to click the plus for a new layer and use the same technique. Go to the S-shaped ribbon, make a rectangle and fill it with that black. Turn off the selection and go to the move tool again to use distort. If we hadn't made a new layer, then we will be using distort on both the door and the window, and it wouldn't really work. We would be distorting both of them at the same time. So that's why we are creating a new layer for each element. There we have this, but once you are happy with your elements, of course you can go to the layer menu and just squish them together. Then they're on the same layer because we don't need to distort them any further here. But for our next window, we will be creating a new layer by clicking the plus, and again, we will use the rectangle selection and make another window. Fill the shape like that. Click the S-shaped ribbon and again go to the move tool, use distort and make a weird looking window. And just make sure that between each step you make a new layer before you use this technique. Because that way you have control over each little element that you're creating. And we're just repeating this step for each window on our house. And you can make it as crazy as you like. We're not making a realistic looking house here, we're making a freaky house. And you can just squish the windows together that you like to reduce your amount of layers. Just make sure that you keep creating new layers for each window. I'll make another window here, just a simple rectangle. Fill it by dragging in the color, turn off the selection and using distort. And I'm just distorting it really slightly. Almost there. Another new layer for a window on this story. Turn off the selection, go to the move tool, and distort it a bit. Oh, what did just happen? Need to undo that. That got distorted a bit too much. Alright, let's squish them together. Let's make like a semicircle window at the top. We can do that too with the selection tool. All I have to do is go for the ellipse selection. We'll make a circle first and then go to remove. Now whatever you select will be removed from the selection that you already have. So if we click remove and then rectangle, we can make a rectangle here and remove the bottom part of that selection. And there we have a semicircle. And this one can also be distorted by turning off the selection, going to the move tool and using distort. And we can change that semicircle a bit, turning it into an interesting window here at the top of our house. Now we'll go to the layer menu. Be sure to merge all the windows. Not because you have to, but it keeps things organized and they don't have to be on separate layers. What we'll do now is click the layer, turn on alpha lock. Remember, that way we can only paint inside of the shapes of the windows. And now we can grab another brush. We will go back to inking and use the dry ink brush. We will use that one to decorate the windows a bit more. Let's start at the top. The brush is set to 100% opacity and the size is at 6%. And for our color, let's pick this gray over here in the color palette. And I will just go along the edges of our windows to add that thing that I don't know the name of. Is it a windowsill? Let's create some diagonal lines here, going from that center at the bottom to the outside. And we'll just go along all of these windows, adding this frame to the windows. And make a little cross, a vertical line and a horizontal line. Now here we can just go along that outside. And you can decorate your windows any way you like. First those outsides. And then like a cross here. You don't have to worry about making straight lines because we are making a wonky house. Because that makes it look a bit more spooky than if it was really tidy. By the way, if you are enjoying making this haunted house this way, then you might want to check out my Skillshare class about creating colorful houses. It's not very spooky, but it's a bit similar to this class, to this tutorial. Just a lot more cheerful. But you might like that one. It's the same style. Now let's make a vertical line. I like that wobbly look. Then finally we have that door. Let's pick another color for that one. Let's go for this bluish color. First I'll go for that outside. Now let's keep that top part open. And then add some wood here at the bottom. I'll just roughly color it in. And you can pick up that local color, that dark color, and go over it again, making these like these wooden planks. For our next step, I would like to add some extra touches to this house. Let's add some, like these window boards. Let's do it on a new layer. So we'll click the plus. And for the color, we will use this. Let's use this very light color over here. And let's just keep using the dry ink brush that we were already using to add extra touches. For instance, we can add a little line here at the top for our chimney. And we'll add those window boards. Not sure if that's what they're called. Let's add those to our windows. We can just make a rectangle. And you can choose to go for the automatic shape, the quick shape, or you can just do it by hand. Make it a bit wobbly. I actually like that look. So if you tend to make wobbly lines, this is the moment that you'll shine. Let's make one here. And I'll just color it in by hand. Even though it will probably not fit if we would close them. But who cares? It just looks good. Let's make one here. It's almost falling off. And let's fill this as well. And let's add an extra touch to the bottom of this window. I want to add an extra thick line here. And here for this window as well. And then a little shutter here for our door. Also almost falling off. And I'll fill it in by hand because it's just so therapeutic to color this in like this. And it gives a nice texture. If we would just fill it by dragging in the color, then it would look more flat. And now we have that nice texture of this brush. But let's continue adding more touches. I also want to add some color to those roofs. So let's go to our color palette and let's pick this fourth color here in the second row. And let's go over our roofs. Just follow that line. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay if it's a bit wobbly. And let's do the same for this roof. Let's add more gray on this side, giving this part of the house a nice looking roof. Now I want to add some touches to these shutters, but I want to make sure that I won't be painting outside of the shutters. So I'll go to the layer menu, click the layer, and turn on alpha lock so I won't be able to paint outside of the shapes. And now let me go to the sketching brushes and use the 6B pencil. I'll stick with this color. The brush is at 100% opacity and the size is at 10%. And let's just add some touches. Like a vertical line like this. And on this shutter as well. And then some horizontal lines in between those two lines. But of course you can pick whatever pattern you like. All the way down there. Now let's go for this shutter over here. I'll make a rectangle inside of the shutter. And again, I'll make these lines. Not going too tidy, keeping it loose. Now this one, I want to add a woody texture. First I'll make these lines, making them a bit wobbly again. And then adding thinner lines by using less pressure on this brush. And these thinner lines, they give the impression of wood. Not realistic wood, just cartoony wood. But that's what we're going for here. The wooden boards on the house, those planks, they still look a little bit tidy. Let's do something about that. Let's go back to the layer with the house on it and where we made those boards. Make sure that drawing assist is turned off. And let's use that ink bleed brush again. You can find it under inking. Here we have the ink bleed brush. And for the color, let's use that dark color again. And now we are going to mess up some of these planks. Let's add some cracks. Let's make them less tidy. For instance, here we can make that black looking hole. Because this is a very old house and these planks, they're not very good anymore. So we can make some a bit more skewed. Make them a bit more wobbly. So just try to mess them up a bit. That'll add to the spookiness of this house. And for instance, you can also pick up that color of the house and remove a plank like this. Go back to the dark color and then go for a diagonal line. As if there's a very weird plank over there. And just make some holes like this. Just go all the way to the bottom of the house, adding these interesting shapes to these planks. Perhaps a little hole here. And one more over here. Let's go to that little extra part on the house. Make sure that you turn off drawing assist. And again, and do be sure that alpha lock is still turned on. And now let's add some holes here as well. Add some cracks. Now we have our house, but it's floating in the air. Let's give it some ground. To add some ground, first we'll make a new layer on top of all the others. So go to layer 5, click the plus for a new layer. And for the brushes, we will go to the textures brushes and use, not sure how to pronounce it, Signet? I don't know. Please just read it and you'll know what brush to use. It's a hard to pronounce name. And for the color, let's pick this color right here in the color palette at the bottom. And the opacity is at 100% and the size is at 5%. And now let's make a hill underneath our house. This brush is a little bit transparent. Even though you have your opacity at 100%, it's still a bit transparent, so you'll need multiple layers to make it more opaque. Let's build up this type of grassy hill on which our house is standing. And now let's go for some final touches. Let's make a little tombstone. Let's create a new layer on top here. For the color, we will use this one right here. It's a bit of a yellowish grayish color. And for the brush, we can use the 6B pencil, which you can find under sketching. Let's zoom in a little bit and let's add a little tombstone here. You can just color it in by hand, giving it that nice texture. And let's add some text. Let's just pick up this local color and write "Rest in Peace." To merge it a bit more with the grass, we can go back to the textures brushes and use that hard to pronounce brush. Let's pick that color over here again. And you can go over that underside of the tombstone to make it merge with that grass a bit more. Now I would like to add a bright, big full moon, and we'll do that on a layer underneath the house because, well, that's just logic. And we'll put this moon on a layer underneath the house. So first select the layer with the sky, click the plus for a new layer, and for the brush we will go to the calligraphy brushes and use the monoline brush. And for the color we will pick this bright color over here, and let's draw a circle. Just draw a circle, hold your pen in place, and tap one finger on your screen to turn it into a perfectly round circle. Then just drag in the color to fill it. And if you go to the move tool, you can move it around until it's in a place where you want it to be, where it's the perfect size. I like where it's at right now. Let's click the arrow again. And let's give it a slight blur. We'll go to the magic wand, then pick Gaussian blur, click layer, and slide your pen to the right just slightly. Let's go for 3.2%. Now I'll make a layer above our moon layer. So click the plus again for a new layer. And on this layer, I would like to add a tree. And for our tree, we will use the script brush, which is also under calligraphy. And this brush, when you press hard, you will get thick lines, and when you press very lightly, you will get very thin lines, which is great if you want to make a creepy looking bear tree. For the color, let's pick this second color in the bottom row, and let's start here at the bottom near the grass. And let's just make a line going up for our longest branch, well, the base of the tree. And then you can start making branches going out. And use very little pressure when you reach the end of your branch. We can make some side branches. Just make sure that they are very thick at the base, and as you move out, they will become thinner. So in the beginning, you can use more pressure, and as you reach the outside, you can use less pressure. I'll go up here on the left, and then we'll show up here. So I want to make sure that my shape is closed. So I'll just make a line here behind that house so that I'm sure that it's closed. relatively short, taking a chance here. But we'll see once we will move the color in there. Let's try it out. Let's drag in the color, see if our shape is filled. Yeah, that one's, well, if it's filled, if it's closed. Yeah, closed. But if not, it's easy to just fix that. Yeah, there we have a hole. Let's zoom in a little bit. Must be somewhere here. That's better. And you can also fill some parts in just by coloring them by hand. And let's add some more branches here going out. And it does take some practice to get some control over the pressure that you're using. But don't worry. You'll get used to it after some practice. And our tree, it's on a separate layer, so if you're not liking it, then you can just start over until you get something that you're happy with. But we are already having a very wobbly house, very wonky. It doesn't have to be perfect. Our tree doesn't have to be perfect either. You can just make some really wonky, weird shapes here. And for our final touch, I would like to add some ghosts to our image. Let's create a new layer on top of all the others. Click the plus. And we can keep using this script brush. And let's pick this light yellowish, orangish, grayish color to create some ghosts. They will be floating here at the top. And let's give them something of a droplet shape. Like this. And one going down here. And one over here. They are floating around our haunted house. Let's drag in the color to fill our ghosts. And let's give them a face. Let's pick up this color over here from our tree. Let's give them eyes and an open mouth. As if they are screaming. And to make them appear more ghostly, we can add a layer mask and add some transparency here. Let's click the layer, then select mask. And on this layer mask, we will start painting with black to mask some parts of these ghosts. We'll do that with the soft brush under airbrushing. And we will set it to black. You can double tap here at the bottom to select pure black. And the opacity is still at 40%. Let's make it a bit smaller. Let's say 6%. Let's just go over that tail of the ghost, making that more transparent. Starting to look a bit more like a ghost. Not that I know what ghosts really look like. There. Just one more thing. Let's also add a little bit of mist to to the ground, to that lower part of our illustration. Let's create a new layer on top by clicking the plus. We will stick with the soft brush that we were already using. And let's pick this light color here. And let's make some horizontal strokes using very light pressure Let's make these strokes over the bottom part of our image to give it a sense of mist, making it look extra spooky. Just a touch, not too much. And there we have our haunted house. I hope you have enjoyed following this tutorial. If you did, then you can support this channel by leaving a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, or checking out my Patreon page. I'm looking forward to seeing your results. Don't forget to share them on Instagram. Thanks for watching. See you next time.